I suppose 100 is really a symbol of a lot of work and effort and patience and dedication and just sort of like relentless the relentless going out and doing it even on the days when we're not motivated.
Welcome to We Need to Talk Now. I am Emma Ruby, and today I am joined by an absolute GOAT. And like when we talk about greatest of all time, like MIKAELA SHIFFRIN definitely fits into that mold, like undisputed. You are fresh off of your 100th career World Cup win, which is a little bit of what we're here to talk about today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the intro.
I mean, absolutely. What else can you say? I mean, what else can you say about MIKAELA SHIFFRIN than like the GOAT? I feel like you might say a little differently.
Yeah, I introduced myself as like awkward weirdo, not, but it's really up to that was very flattering and I'm honored. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
The humility makes you like even more lovable. I feel like it's just so refreshing sometimes too. But you're 4 weekends left on the world ski circuit. Like how crazy is it to kind of be coming up on the end here, especially considering you only started skiing again like in early February?
Yes, yeah, after the injury back in the crash and injury back in Killington in November, I was out of competition for I guess it was about 2 months in the end. And then working my way back to skiing, back to the World Cup, back to Europe, and that's the last month that I've been here is all the competitions have been in Europe. We had World Championships in February earlier this month because it's still February. As you can see, awkward weirdo. So it's been quite a process. I mean, returning from injury, I had a 7-centimeter deep stab wound basically from this wonky crash in Killington that was really close to actually puncturing my colon. It didn't, which made this an injury that was potentially something I could return from this season. I think in many cases this would have been a season-ending injury, but not so much because the muscle wouldn't heal, but because there's just a lot of mental and sort of psychological hurdles to work through in returning to skiing after not only the crash this season, but also a crash I had last season in Cortina in January last year. So it's been quite a process. Of course, we're talking about, the 100th victory. And I think a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? PTSD, you just won a race. And it's a little bit hard to really explain that fully. But I mean, I definitely didn't think that the 100 was going to happen this season after everything that's gone on the last couple months.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into 100 here in a minute. You did mention something that I think is, you've been very open about your PTSD, and it would be very easy to just say, hey, I'm back to winning. I just did this really amazing thing. Everything is good. But like in other times in your career, you're choosing to be really refreshingly honest with your mental health. So, what would you say is kind of behind this mentality to put it all out there? And despite it looking somewhat easy for you, given how often you are open with your mental health, is it ever hard for you to kind of open up like this?
It is this time around. It is particularly hard. I mean, I'm kind of an naturally introverted person. So I've always been pretty open and honest. I think just because that's the only way I really know how to communicate is like, I'm either quiet or I'm open, but I don't really know how to play up a show or sometimes it's like when I come through the finish and when I won a race, and it was the same thing on 100, I'm just trying to figure out what's happening and then see what my time is on the scoreboard. And all of these other athletes are able to come through the finish and celebrate and have a reaction. And I've had so many times people have been like, come on, have a reaction, make it look like you're having fun at least. And I'm just internal, like I'm processing. I don't know how to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
being open and just kind of feeling what I'm feeling in the moment and being honest with that, it's just kind of how I take on life. But at the same time, this time around has been challenging. Some of what I've been feeling with the return from this injury is really tacked onto, it's like a compilation of uh, other events, including my crash last year, but also dating back to when my dad passed away in an unexpected and extreme manner. And all of these things kind of adding on top of each other. A lot of the symptoms that I feel right now, this sort of delayed processing, the sort of memory challenges when I'm trying to memorize a course, just feeling like I have to take more energy to do things that I was doing fairly effortlessly prior to the crash this year. That those symptoms are actually really similar to the year after my dad passed away, and there are some slight differences that, at that point, I was feeling particularly apathetic to fear and danger and risk. This time around, I'm almost like overstimulated by the risk, and it's probably because I crashed and got punctured somehow. But I guess the point of talking about this is that there's so many athletes who have come to me to talk about how they relate and the similarities. And most athletes in ski racing go through some kind of a traumatic crash at some point in their career. I think a lot of athletes, even currently competing, even athletes who are currently winning, are also experiencing some kind of mental block or disconnect. And the fact is, it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's like, even some of my teammates have not only tried to help me through this and help me understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but also some of my teammates are actually connecting with this in a way like they didn't realize that's something that they might be experiencing. They thought they're just not good. And that is why I'm talking about it.
No, I think that's so, one, outstanding, and two, like, I think it's crazy how we don't realize how much our, like, mind body connection can, like, play into it when it comes to our mental health, that, like, you don't even realize until, like, years down the road, and you're like, "Hey, my body's, like, holding on to this thing that happened."
Yeah.
So being open about it is really outstanding, and I just wanted to say thank you from, like, on my end, like, just for being so open and honest, because you don't have to be.
Oh, thank you. No, I it's just
Um,
something people experience a lot more than we realize. And even now,
yeah.
uh, I can't imagine going through this 10 years ago or 8 years ago when it was even more of a taboo topic. And, not just for athletes, not just for professional athletes, but for anybody, to go through this feeling really alone and feeling like there's truly something, um, like I have the inability to be good or successful at this anymore, is I can't imagine doing that. And now, just because
Yeah.
people are talking about it, I actually have assistance and support and help of, a psychologist or teammates. And that is amazing. I am so grateful to be at this point in time, um, experiencing this versus at a time when it was even more isolating than it is now.
For sure. For sure. I mean, you talk about kind of all this compounding mental stuff and how traumatic this injury was. Like, it could have been much worse than what it was, but it was still very traumatic. And you came back within like 2 months, and you could have just said, you know what, I'll return next season. What made you want to return this season versus taking the rehab a little bit slower and then, kind of coming back next, I think October is
Yeah.
usually when ski season starts?
Yeah. I think as soon as I kind of realized there are a lot of checkpoints along the way in this rehab, and
Mhm.
just kind of, okay, how's oblique healing? When can I start activating? Um, those muscles, working through isometric work and then rotational, and all these different checkpoints. And as I was working through them, we were getting a better gauge about when realistically I could return to just getting on my skis, and then potentially back to training, and then potentially back to racing. And as it became more clear that physically I might be able to withstand racing again this season, I couldn't imagine not trying. And I think even though this has been really challenging to return, I also would much prefer to be aware of these challenges now than beginning next season. It's the beginning of an Olympic season. It's the start of a new cycle. I want to kick off the season strong. So to get to the first race of the season next year and realize, oh my gosh, like I've got quite a mental block that I didn't necessarily realize was there from training, that would have really been quite a big setback. So unfortunately, the only real way to work through this sort of mind-body connection here is to do it and to expose to it, especially in the higher intensity racing environment. It's different than training. And that's what my teammates have all said. That's what any competitor that I've talked to that's experienced this has said. You just gotta do it. Unfortunately, I'm going through this very publicly, but on the other hand, like a Sunday winning the 100th race, that was a beautiful moment to realize that like I still have that connection. It's not there 100% of the time. I'm not always feeling myself, but there are moments, and that gives me hope that maybe I can bring this back also in giant slalom. Maybe I can get there again.
Let's talk about that 100th win a little bit, because it was very, very monumental. I mean, you were the first Alpine skier to ever reach 100 World Cup wins. What does it mean to you to kind of be the first one to do something in history?
Quite.
I mean, has it
Yeah.
sunk in yet? Like, it's kind of.
I don't know that it's sunk in. I suppose 100 is really a symbol of a lot of work and effort and patience and dedication, and just sort of like the relentless going out and doing it, even on the days when we're not motivated, from my entire team and from all of those who have worked with me over years and years and years. And it really is it's a culmination of a lot of effort and a lot of, I think, sacrifice as well. It's hard to wrap my mind around 100 races, but it's a lot easier to sort of bring meaning to it when I bring other I don't like other special ways to share it, like sharing this podium with my teammate Paula Moltzen. That was incredible. She's had an amazing season. She won a medal at World Championships. Like that was so special to be able to share that with my teammates, and to be able to connect this through the collaboration with Share Winter Foundation, trying to help assist Share Winter in their work to bring kind of expand access to these winter sports we love to youth that would otherwise not have access, and sort of create a greater meaning around 100, which in and of itself, the number means nothing to me. It's, if that makes any sense. So it's it kind of, it's like a way of saying thank you to the sport and sharing my own passion for winter with more people, because it's been such a gift for me in my life.
Yeah, no, I do want to get into the Share Winter Foundation. You announced your partnership following your win to raise $100,000 and quote, reset the sport. You're going to help cover costs for kids to learn to ski this season. You talked a little bit about it already, but what is kind of your goals with this, and what exactly made you want to partner with the Share Winter Foundation in particular?
Yeah, to be honest, this idea sparked from around the time of the 86 victory, which was matching the all-time World Cup wins record. That was a couple years ago, actually. And I remember at that time I was thinking, oh, I wish there was a way to just make this mean something different than 86 World Cup wins. It's like, again, I said the number sort of means nothing unless it's in the context of something else, something greater. And that's what kind of sparked this idea of like, what can I do? What has skiing meant to me? And it's been, I said this before, it's been such a gift for me to be able to experience life in the mountains, in snow sport, and sharing that with more people feels really beautiful and really connected to the achievement in and of itself. I've been really privileged to be able to do this sport and to be able to chase my dreams in this sport. And certainly not everybody has those same dreams, and they don't have that same privilege or ability to access this. So trying to share it and trying to sort of bolster up the sport and help more people realize how mentally freeing it is to be outdoors in the mountains on snow. That, like I said, it's been such a gift for my entire life, for my family, for all the people close to me who also ski or snowboard. And I really wanted to be able to just play a small role in helping share that with more people, and especially more youth.
I love that. I mean, as someone that only really skied for the first time like this January, I understand what you're saying with like the mental freedom. I grew up swimming, and so like we couldn't really do anything that was going to like potentially damage any major ligaments, you know?
Yep.
So
Yep, totally.
that's a conversation I've had with tons of athlete friends, is it's like I grew up skiing, but then I had to stop because this got more serious, or, you know, like you just became a professional skier, you know?
Yeah, that was a necessary risk that we wanted to take on. But I also think that is one of the scariest things about the sport. That's what I'm dealing with right now, is like, I don't want to fall. I don't want to feel pain. There's sort of a thrill of it that I've probably become a little bit accustomed to. Most ski racers do on the World Cup. But when if you go on Share Winter and you watch some of the videos that they post about these kids who are getting out there and it's their first or their second run and they're in the chairlift and they're like, oh my gosh, that was such a thrill. Like, I just crashed, but I got back up and this is just crazy. This is like a roller coaster, but I'm in control, sort of. And like, hearing them talk about it reminds me of the thrill of it that I used to have, that maybe now I've become almost desensitized to. But in a way, right now, I'm almost oversensitized to it. And I'm feeling all those feelings that they're having on their third run ever in their life. Like, whoa, like, oh, I don't want to crash again, but maybe if I do this, then maybe I won't crash again. And I'm getting better, and I'm going a little faster, and that's really cool. It's just it is really so fun. When you take out the pressure of whatever World Cup winning competition, you're just in the mountains for the love of it. But I think the more important thing is, maybe these kids aren't going to come back and ski every year. Maybe skiing or snowboarding isn't going to be a part of their life, but the love of the mountains is going to be in their life forever. And that, I think, is what's the most wonderful, is that this can be something impactful for their emotional life and mental life far beyond however long they're skiing. And for you as well, hopefully you keep skiing, or
I mean, I will. It's addicting. I mean,
yeah.
I was like Googling like you ski. I was like, okay, let's figure out how we can make this, you know. And I also just love the mountains. Like when there's not snow, I think hiking and like all of that, it's like there's no better place. There's been an outpouring of praise and love from around the sports community and beyond. Anne-Marie Mosier-Prohl called it unbelievable and spectacular, your 100th win, saying, MIKAELA is and will remain the best ever. Franz Klemmer said that those wins put you in the stratosphere, like you're not even in the atmosphere. You also got shout outs from Coco Gauff, Gabby Thomas, Billie Jean King.
Yeah.
Can you even put into words what that type of support means to you? And could you have ever imagined feeling this from so many different people?
No, I couldn't have ever imagined. I still can't imagine it now, even though it's happening. I've watched these athletes compete. They've been inspirations for me through my entire life. I mean, it's pretty indescribable to receive that kind of support and just these words from people who have been, they've been the reason that I compete and that I want to do the work and be relentless. That's amazing. And I don't know. It's sometimes it's hard to believe that anybody even watches or has any interest. It's like, oh, here we are. And that's one thing, beauty of being in the mountains is how peaceful it is and how you almost don't realize that there is the rest of the world. For just a few moments you can escape. And so when I come back to reality, and then reality is Billie Jean King talking about success that I've had, that's like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, we talk about too somebody else that has you've been described as untouchable, unreachable, unrepeatable. Somebody else that is unrepeatable is none other than Diana Taurasi, who very recently announced her retirement after 20 years in the WNBA. From one GOAT to another, how would you describe Diana's career? And if there was anything you could say to her, what would it be?
Actually, I was in Paris this summer, and we got to watch the women's final game, which was super cool to see the atmosphere, and something that she has been part of creating. I think a leader in creating this kind of atmosphere in women's basketball. That was really cool and super inspirational. One thing that I actually recently read in one of the many articles about her retirement, she said, there's all this GOAT talk, right? And she said something like, it's not up to me to grade that. And I just thought it was so cool to hear somebody of her stature and who's left such a monumental mark in her sport to have the kind of courage to say, I've done what I've done. It's not up to me to convince others of my relevance or accomplishments. It's been good enough for me. I've enjoyed it. I've done everything I can do. That was really, really impressive. I think it's another sign of her leadership in women's sport to be able to, because in women's sport, we've for such a long time felt like we've had to kind of claw tooth and nail at some relevance, some TV time, some airtime. And once again, she's showing this leadership to be able to say, that's up to everybody else to decide. I did my best and I had the most fun I possibly could. That's just it's so badass to me. So I wish her all the best. And changing the game takes a lot of time and courage and patience. And it's been hugely inspiring to all athletes, and certainly myself included.
For sure. For sure. You talk about attending the Paris Olympics. We talked a little bit, we touched on it. There is an Olympics coming up in 2026, which would be a potential fourth Olympic team were you to make it. Obviously, nothing is set in stone. But have you thought that far ahead at all, and what it would mean for you to be a 4-time Olympian?
I to be honest, I haven't really thought about it that way. I, of course, am thinking about the Olympics, and we sort of use our World Cup season as the qualifier. So next season will be, it's a big one, and that's part of the reason I said, like, I wanted to come back this season if it was at all possible, because I need to get that ball rolling in order to earn and deserve a spot on the Olympic team. But being a 4-time Olympian is not really something that was on my radar when I was a little kid. I was like, we all had Olympic dreams, of course, but it becomes something different when you realize that you're, potentially recurring or repeating Olympian for the 4th time. I haven't really thought about it that way. That's actually wild.
Isn't it? You're like, how is it? Then you also have to consider it's like every 4 years. So you're like, that's like 16 years of my life.
It's been a minute. Yeah. I
right?
know. My 30th birthday is coming up in not too long here. And I'm like,
you're like, what do you mean?
I'm feeling it. Like, my body's kind of hurting.
Right? No, I feel you. Cause like, I also think about it. I'm like, how is Katie, like, I remember watching Katie Ledecky in 2012, right? Like, and you in like 2014. I'm like, how are we here? Like, how did we get here?
Time is weird.
It's so weird. But thinking a little more about time, right? Yeah, thinking a little bit more about time and about younger MIKAELA. There is a trend going around on social media right now that I love, where people are like describing themselves meeting their younger selves for coffee or a drink and what they'd say. So, thinking in that line, what do you think young MIKAELA would say to you today? And what would you say to young MIKAELA if you could?
Honestly, I think it'd be a really awkward conversation now that when I think about it, because I'm like not great at starting a conversation, and I wasn't at that time either. So we'd probably be like, hey,
sitting there like, hi.
No.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I think when I first came across one of my greatest idols in the sport was Bodie Miller. And when I first saw him in real life, like kind of up close, because I was like 5 years old, and I went to watch the Birds of Prey races, and he was racing and he won, and I was like, I couldn't get at him there, right? But I was training in Colorado, and he was training in the same area, and I remember just completely freezing. And this kind of the way I am, like, I get like overly inspired and emotional by great performances. It doesn't matter who it is or what they're doing. And I think a lot of us feel that, right? And I just freeze in time. I'm just like, can't believe that I'm in a world where I'm even close to being part of this, even for a moment. So that probably would be the same as, if I met myself younger, and which is kind of crazy to think, because who would have thought? Not me.
Right. Like, this journey has just been crazy. One word to describe the journey?
Maybe this is sort of 2 words, but you could call it one. That's fine. Probably a dream.
I love that.
I mean, some of it doesn't feel real. A lot of it doesn't feel real. And some of it's been a nightmare too, like maybe not specifically going out and skiing, but a lot of the personal challenges that have come along with, living life and growing up alongside of ski racing and everything else that happens. We like to believe that athletes just do what they do and there's nothing else involved. And so when they don't succeed, it's because they did something wrong. And when they do succeed, it's because they did something right. And a lot of times there's just more to it than that. There's challenge, there's relationships, there's growth and learning, and a lot of times failing and taking one step forward and two steps back, and then sometimes three steps forward and one step back, and all of that, you grow up in sort of the spotlight of the public opinion and everything. And it certainly hasn't all been easy, but I think overall that's kind of what dreaming is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a good dream,
I love
sometimes,
that.
but yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great way to end it. I think, I love that notion. And so, yeah, I appreciate you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, have a great rest of your season. 4 races left.
Yes,
You're
4
ending it in the States, right?
Yes.
1 more month. You're ending it in the States and then a little bit of a break.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Thank you so
But
much.